Yes, I was trying to speak to one of the chiefs, assistant chief, or the chief himself about a particular case from December. I just wanted to discuss some issues.
About a what? A case in December?
Yes, I know that sounds very strange, but the reason it's taken so long for me to address it is because I only recently received the body cam video.
Okay, and do you have a case number?
2018-000-47316.
And were you assigned to a detective? Was there a detective in charge of it? Do you know?
No, it wasn't that type of thing. This is an incident, a traffic incident.
Okay, so because he's not available, you would first need to start with Captain Clements. Can I transfer you over to him?
Sure. That was.
I
think I
he
tried
would be
calling.
over that. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think I tried calling that individual earlier, but all I got was voicemail. But if he's available, that'd be great.
He was probably on the phone, so if you leave him a message, he'll call you back, okay, if he doesn't answer.
Oh, okay.
All right, hold on. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I just need to speak to somebody. I just keep on getting it. I know that these guys are busy. Don't get me wrong. I just, everybody I try calling, all I get is voicemail, so.
Yeah, some people are on their phones, some are out, some are back, but he will call you back if he doesn't answer, if you leave him a message. And he is the captain over that area, so you need to start with him, okay?
Okay, I understand.
Okay. All right, hold on.
Hello, this is Captain Royce Clements with the Idaho Falls Police Department. Not able to take your call right now, so you can leave a phone number and a message, and I'll call you back as soon as I can. If you need to talk to someone right away, you can call my assistant at 208-612-8660. Thank you.
Please leave a message at the tone. When finished, you may hang up or press pound for additional options.
Hi, my name is Andre. I'm calling in reference to Idaho Falls Police Department case number 2018-000-47316. The date of the case was December 30th, 2018. I know that was several months ago, but the reason that I'm trying to discuss and conversate with you about this particular case is because I recently received copies of the body cam videos, and from what I saw in the videos, I'm not saying it was the worst case of police-citizen interaction I've ever seen. It's not like you guys are the worst in the world, but I was disturbed by the video because from what I saw, one of the passengers I feel was treated overly aggressively by the Idaho Falls Police Department during that particular case number 2018-000-47316. Her name was Amy Marie McCammon. That's Amy Marie McCammon, and she was a passenger, not the driver, in a vehicle that was pulled over the vehicle had supposedly failed to make a signal, so the driver was pulled over. Now, the driver did give the IFPD some problems. He was being, I guess, he wasn't complying, he wasn't given his driver's license and registration and all that. But then Amy, as a passenger, one of the IFPD officers then directed his investigation and his authority towards Amy Marie McCammon as a passenger, and he demanded Amy's ID. And supposedly he claimed that Amy was in violation of the Idaho seatbelt law. Well, it turns out, from what I read, and I'm 100% sure of this, and you could watch the video for yourself, and you can, of course, look up the Idaho seatbelt law for anyone over the age of 18, is that she had never actually broken that law. The officer was dead sure that she had violated the Idaho seatbelt law, and that because of that reason, his demand for ID from her was legitimate, and that if she didn't comply, there was going to be problems. Well, there definitely was problems. She ended up going to the jailhouse. Long story short, is the officer and his fellow officers, they dragged her out of the car, put her in handcuffs, and arrested her. Eventually, she only got charged for resisting and obstructing an officer. But the point I'm trying to make is that everything that led up to her arrest, as far as I'm concerned, was not legitimate and legal, because the officer that approached that vehicle, which, by the way, was already parked, it wasn't in the road, the car didn't get pulled over while driving. The police, by the time they came up on the vehicle's already parked. So, and that's key right there, because when the officer approached that vehicle on foot, that vehicle was already parked. It was not in motion, and that's the key, because since the vehicle was not in motion, when the officer came up and supposedly saw Amy with no seatbelt on, that means that he did not have, as far as I'm concerned, I'm no lawyer, but from what I could see there and from what I understand from the law, he didn't have probable cause that she had violated the seatbelt law, because the vehicle wasn't in motion. So there's nothing to dispute about the seatbelt law, because the car was not going anywhere. And so what I'm saying is that everything after that, where he demanded ID and eventually arrested Amy Marie McCammon, was not lawful, because she had never violated the seatbelt law in the first place. And so I feel that, you know, even though that this incident didn't happen to me, that this is a serious issue, and serious in the fact that the police who are enforcing these laws need to actually properly enforce the laws, and if there is a law to be enforced, then it needs to be applied properly, and they need to know what they're applying. It shouldn't just be something that they're firing from the hip and just making things up as they go along. I think you'd agree with that, you know, being in the position you are at the department. I mean, it sounds like you've been on the force for, I'm guessing, a couple decades, and you know, you're one of the highest supervisors in the department. So that's what my phone call is about, is that this woman, her name is Amy Marie McCammon, on December 30th, 2018, in case number 2018-000-47316, she was aggressively detained and eventually taken to the jailhouse by the IFPD, and I feel that it was done unlawfully, and the video will prove that. You can watch it for yourself, and I will try calling back later. My name is Andre, Andrei. My cell phone number is 915-781-4330. That's 915-781-4330. That's my cell number. You'll probably notice my area code is not from Idaho whatsoever. I don't live in Idaho. I've never been to Idaho. I know that sounds strange, but as far as I'm concerned, the world's getting smaller. So watching the video is all I needed. I don't need to be in Idaho to see what happened. And I know that the incident didn't happen to me, so I can't make a formal complaint, but I still felt it was important to make this phone call and leave this voicemail, because I think that, you know, someone at the top like yourself should be discussing this with the leadership of the IFPD, because, you know, there's no way that Amy Marie McCammon broke the law that night regarding the Idaho seatbelt law, and there's definitely no reason she should have been taken to the jailhouse over something that minor. So that's what I'm calling and leaving this voicemail about, and I hope that the IFPD leadership can address this issue and correct the procedures of the IFPD going forward. All right, again, my name is Andre, Andrei. I live in Texas, and my cell phone number is 915-781-4330. That's 915-781-4330. Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Bye.
To send this message, press pound or hang up. To review, press 1.
You know, when you look out now as you are the leader of the department, what are some things that you want to change, or what's your vision? Where do you foresee the Idaho Falls Police Department going?
So the number one thing I want to change initially is just kind of how we interact with each other internally in the department, you know, how we talk to each other, how we understand each other, kind of how we communicate internally. So we're going to take care of that. The folks are already doing a really good job of doing police work out in the community. I think we just need to the way we communicate internally. And we've already done really good there. There's really good people. So once we get done with that, we'll switch our focus to the external communication, how we interact with the public, how we interact with other folks. And if you talk about vision, you know, we're going to want to be an open police department. I always hesitate to use the word transparent, because that brings all sorts of negative connotations depending on your political affiliation. So I intentionally don't say transparent. We're going to be an open police department. You know, we're going to believe in teamwork. We want to work as a team. Community-oriented policing is what we're going to be doing, and we're going to be a values-driven organization. We're going to live by values and have values that guide our decisions and guide our actions. So that's kind of where the vision of the future is.
Speaking of being open and transparent, the media does a lot of dumb stuff. I'll admit that, working in the media.
You don't see me shaking my head. And we all do. You know, isn't that a statement that
we do,
every profession could make?
And I know here, at least in our organization, we're never out to get the police or, you know, screw anybody over. But what's your view as far as working with the media? Sometimes there can be a hard relationship with law enforcement and the media.
So funny enough, usually local media, you should be able to overcome that because we all live in the same spot and we should be talking together regularly. And so my fundamental assumptions is that you have a job to do, which is an important job, and it's not antagonistic towards us. It's simply you have a job to do, and we just recognize that, and we do our best to get you whatever information you may need to do your job, and that's worked really well. And over years, I think we've been able to develop relationships with people in the media, and you know, we make mistakes every now and again, and you can expect we'll make a mistake. I mean, tell me an organization or a person that doesn't make a mistake, and we'll do our best to copy them. They don't exist, and when we make a mistake, we'll own it and say, yep, that one's on us, and we'll go out and we'll do better. And so locally, I think it can work quite well. National media sometimes a little bit differently because they're not that into relationships. They'll sometimes, if the big thing happens, they can blow into town, and they're not as keen on those relationships. So I don't see it as an adversarial relationship. I see it as you got a job to do, so do we, and often, very often, they line up.
Mm-hmm. One of the issues that...
Hey, ma'am.
I can record this. I'm allowed to.
I know.
Okay, thanks.
Can I get some ID?
No, I don't need to give you my ID because there's no reason for it.
So,
I don't have to give you my ID.
hold on.
You're wearing a seatbelt.
You're
Yes,
wearing
you
a
do.
seatbelt. That's an infraction. You need to give me your ID.
No, I don't need to give you my ID.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
We need to
Under the law,
You're going to end up in the same situation.
under the law, I don't have to give you my ID because I don't have to.
I just told you, you failed to identify yourself. You weren't wearing a seatbelt because you haven't been a seatbelt since we were over here.
How do you know that?
Because I was on the passenger side this whole time.
Yeah, but
We're about to break your window.
Go.
Ma'am, open the door.
Break that window and kick glass all over me and hurt me like that, I will sue the shit out of you.
Listen, he does not want his window broken.
Okay.
Please unlock your door.
Just
open the door. Window.
Wow, I hope all of you get in deep shit. Don't give me the 1-2 countdown anyway.
Okay, step out
That's
of the car.
bullshit.
Get out of the car.
So, I'm not acting like a kid. I'm acting like a citizen without any rights, obviously, because I'm being yanked out of a car. For a seatbelt? If my phone gets broken, I'm suing the shit out of you too. Oh, take the phone, of course, because you know what?
Hey, stop.
You want your evidence? Give me my phone. Oh my god, it's okay, thanks. Now you guys owe me a phone too.
No, we don't.
No, I'm not. Yeah, you reaching through my phone for what?
Stop
For
resisting.
what? Why did you throw my phone? For a seatbelt?
Because you're not
This
complying.
is for a seatbelt?
Yes.
This is the treatment I get for a seatbelt?
Yes, absolutely.
Ow, you're fucking gonna break my arm. You like my fucking arm. I'm not, but you're twisting my fucking arm up so hard that it fucking hurts. No, I'm not. I'm standing here still. How is this resisting?
Will you chill out?
I'm relaxed, but my arms are being pulled up beyond what they need to be pulled up.
Because you're not relaxing.
I can't relax with my arms being yanked up like that. What do you want me to do?
Yes, you can. Relax.
That's
all you have to do is relax.
Do I feel safe with a bunch of people's guns around me right now? Like attacking me with a seatbelt? No.
I know. But
So I'm supposed to feel safe right now?
What do you got?
I am.
So we pulled him over for failure to signal.
I wasn't driving. I wasn't driving, and we just pulled up here. Oh yeah, around the corner. I felt safe.
He's suspended.
That we would get
So he
to the
refused
corner
to
just fine.
identify himself. Insurance. So refused to identify himself. So we pulled him out. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She refused to identify herself, saying she doesn't have to, anything like that. So we pulled her out, and now we're dealing with her. So everybody's refusing to identify them. The entire time that I walked up the side of the vehicle, she had her seatbelt off. So
The other one.
if that is Lauren, she's got a warrant.
please just calm down. What's your name? I understand you're frustrated. I understand Josh
This
is
is
frustrated.
harassment though, because all we're doing is
Listen,
pulling
I understand
up
you.
to a
I
house.
understand you feel that way. But the
Well,
officers
why
are
are we
trying
being harassed,
to explain to you what's going on. but you won't calm down long enough for them.
Okay, well,
Can I explain it to you?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, listen.
Explanation.
Okay, we were behind you. He failed to signal at the stop sign, and he failed to signal when he pulled over. That's an infraction. If you're pulled over, listen, let me finish. If you're pulled over, you're required to provide your driver's license. All right? I walked up to the passenger side of the vehicle. You were not wearing a seatbelt. Okay?
That's after we had already pulled over here.
You're also required to provide identification.
For what? I wasn't I wasn't operating a vehicle.
Seatbelt doesn't matter. You're not wearing a seatbelt.
So I have to have identification for not wearing a seatbelt.
Yes, because that's an infraction.
But I took it off because we were close enough to the house to where
yourself.
I felt it was okay to take it off because we were going to get out.
Okay, that's besides the point.
Okay, well that is not.
You're required to identify yourself.
I'm required to identify myself or provide an ID. Because I could identify myself,
either would have been fine.
But you wanted my driver's license.
But why couldn't
That's
you
what
just
I was
say,
asked for.
Okay, but why didn't you say, I don't have my ID, but here's my name. Here's my date of birth.
You said I want your driver's license.
Okay.
Specifically,
yeah, but now we're getting petty with it, okay?
Okay. Let's. What? You can't take me to fucking jail for not. Okay, you're proving a point. Okay, that's okay. Wait, look at a little. Just wait. No. All I want is.
Is this Lauren? Is this Lauren? Is this her?
That's what he said. She's stuttering.
My phone got broken and thrown in the snow.
So.
It's in the snow.
So you're Lauren, right?
It's in the snow.
You're Lauren, right?
No, I don't know why you call me Lauren.
What's your name then?
Amy.
Amy what?
McCammon.
Amy McCammon.
Yes.
You're not Lauren. You're not the registered owner of this vehicle.
No.
Okay.
I don't know why you guys call me Lauren. That's on you. You would have just asked me my name. I would have given it to you. Well, they asked for a driver's license.
Yeah. So why didn't? So if you didn't have it.
Nobody asked for just my name.
Why didn't you just say your name?
Nobody asked for my name.
Why didn't you just say your name? Okay. We're not going to play this stupid game.
I'm not playing a game.
You didn't say this. We asked you for identification.
You said identification or driver's license, whatever. But I don't have. So what am I supposed to do?
Identify yourself.
You could have just said.
You could have just said your name.
Politely without
but did I say what's identification? What does that word mean to you?
A card with like ID.
No, did I say ID card or did I say identification?
Driver's license. I was told I need a driver's license by her. That's what she said.
No, she didn't say you needed a driver's license.
No, she said I want to see your driver's license.
Okay.
I want to see your driver's license.
So then what could you have replied? I don't have my license,
but
my name is Amy McCammon.
I'm supposed to be calm.
You are not being attacked. I knocked on your window.
Look how many officers are here for a turn signal and a seatbelt.
Yeah, it's because he was being non-compliant.
And then you threatened to bash the window in, and you throw my phone, and you rip my arms are like killing me right now. That was unnecessary.
Well, you started fighting with the officers.
I wasn't fighting.
Yes, you were.
I wasn't physically fighting,
yes,
and I was just stating my rights. I don't see how that's such a big deal.
But here's the thing.
Why can't I say anything without being treated like a piece of crap? Just because you have a badge and I don't?
No, it has nothing to do with it.
I don't go
it has to do with the fact that you didn't identify yourself.
You said, I want to see your driver's license. I don't have a driver's license.
Okay.
So I didn't want to
So
say,
my response, you could have said, hey, I don't have a driver's license, but my name is Amy McCammon.
You could have just asked me for my name like a person.
You could have just provided it.
I wasn't asked for my name. I was asked for a driver's
license. Why else would we want to see your ID?
She was already acting,
why else would we? She was acting totally fine.
You want to give me my seatbelt ticket so I can go?
All of this, okay?
Because we're sick of being harassed by the people that are supposed to protect us.
I've never met you. I've never met you in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there.
Any of you guys.
And this is such a small thing, but look how big it got so fast.
Exactly.
Your choices.
Because we're not being treated like people. That's
no,
why.
you absolutely are.
I have rights and I'm a person.
She said you didn't signal and wanted to see his license. That's it.
Okay,
that's all she wanted.
Signal.
Well,
no, he didn't.
And
he may not.
My dash cam.
Okay, but we were just parking.
She says Amy McCammon.
No, that's about.
When he turned right from the stop sign, he did not signal.
Yeah,
she says it's Amy McCammon.
He did because he saw it already. So he was like, oh, because I'm being harassed by you guys. So, but I don't see why I'm being harassed by you guys. I haven't done anything wrong.
Because you were not wearing a seatbelt.
Of who?
Which, if you want to give me a simple citation for that, that would be up to you. But you didn't ask me.
That's
you said driver's license, and you were already being angry.
Oh, she says she's Amy McCammon.
I'm gonna take everything you guys say. Literally, yes.
And this is Dia. She has a warrant.
What's that?
Who's this? I think she might have a warrant. Huh? Yeah. I got her identified? Do we have her identified? Is this Dia or Dominique? Dia?
Dominique is my sister.
Okay. Did we run her?
Have you ran her? Yeah. Okay. I think it was a non-extraditable warrant out of Delaware.
Okay.
That's what hit.
So, who's this female that's just going crazy?
I don't know. I've only seen her one other time with him. I don't know what her name is, but I know that's not Lauren.
What have you called her?
I don't. She doesn't even talk to me. He was with her one other time when he came by my sister's house.
What was he calling her?
I honestly don't know her name. I don't know her. I was at my sister's house and I came from the bathroom and walked through and they were talking. That might be it. I don't know. But it's not Lauren though. I know.
Where is driver?
He's over here. He's suspended. No warrants.
That's it.
Yeah. This is so stupid. Like
Okay.
Making this big a deal for a suspended license?
Yeah.
Well, it's because there's dope in the car.
Warning.
Oh yeah,
the driver.
What happened?
There's gonna be dope in that black backpack, I guarantee.
Oh. Well.
For her to make that much noise about it.
We called for. Is there a dog on?
Norman.
Well, he's suspended. Right? He's going to jail.
He's at 368.
Passenger.
Oh, 368's on the way.
Oh,
perfect.
He's on the way.
I just told her.
Do you have an Amy McCammon in there?
Same type for a second.
Do you have a DOB for her?
Not yet.
What is she? So she's saying she's Amy McCammon?
That's what she said her name is, yeah.
That is my name.
Okay.
Give you a date of birth?
What's your birthday?
Did you find a photo of her?
Not yet.
Well, if you would have let me, I would have helped you with that, but you know, I hurt my arms off, okay? And not let me show you my ID.
86. We don't have a Benyon here at this moment. We 1022 for the time being. Well, when you refuse to provide it to us for this amount of time. Like I said. So, it would have been simple for you to just say, I'm sorry, I don't have a license with me, but if you'd like my name, it's Amy McCammon. Okay. Oh, no, stop. Just stop it. No, you weren't. Okay. Well, you're refusing to, you know, we can sit here and, okay, I've got no problem treating you like a human being. I absolutely don't. You're not complying with our questions.
I am complying.
You are now. What?
So what do we do now?
Well, we'll figure it out here in just 1 second. They're sending me a photograph real fast.
Okay. So we can't search the vehicle?
Well, I mean the thing is we got to figure out. So he refused to identify himself. His license is suspended. How many? I mean, you asked him several times to provide his license for registration insurance, right? So he can go to jail for resist and obstruct or failure to identify. I know if that particular suspended code is a misdemeanor based on the insurance. I'll have to look at that. I'm just waiting for a photograph on her to see what we have. She's got non-extraditable warrant, I think. Out of, I'm not sure what state it is.
Yeah, she told me Michigan.
And if you talk about vision, you know, we're going to want to be an open police department. I always hesitate to use the word transparent because that brings all sorts of negative connotations depending on your political affiliation. So I intentionally don't say transparent. We're going to be an open police department. You know, we're going to believe in teamwork. We want to work as a team. Community-oriented policing is what we're going to be doing, and we're going to be a values-driven organization. We're going to live by values and have values that guide our decisions and guide our actions. So that's kind of where the vision of the future is.
To give you my ID.
You weren't wearing a seatbelt. Yes, you do.
That's an infraction. You need to give me your ID.
No, I don't need to give you my ID.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Do we need to pull you out of the car?
Okay, you're going to end up in the same situation that he's in.
I don't have to give you my ID.
Okay.
Because I don't have to.
I just told you, you failed to identify yourself. You weren't wearing a seatbelt because you haven't been a seatbelt since we were over here.
How do you know that?
Because I was on the passenger side this whole time.
Yeah, but
we're about to break your window, ma'am. Open the door. Over.
Break that window and then get glass all over me and hurt me.
Like 3 seconds.
Listen.
Listen. She does not want his window broken.
Okay.
Please unlock your door.
Just open the door.
So, I'm just curious because you got me curious because this has never happened to me on an inspection or a traffic stop before.
Okay.
So I've had people videotape me, but not to the extent that you are.
All right.
So I'm just curious. Like, what's up? Like, is something bothering you?
Weapon secure? Yes. Everything on your mind.
We make mistakes every now and again, and you can expect we'll make a mistake. I mean, tell me an organization or a person that doesn't make a mistake, and we'll do our best to copy them. They don't exist, and when we make a mistake, we'll own it and say, yep, that one's on us, and we'll go out and we'll do better.
I do solemnly affirm.
I do solemnly affirm
That I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
And the state of Idaho.
and the state of Idaho
And the laws of the city of Idaho Falls.
and the laws of the city of Idaho Falls,
And will honestly and faithfully perform the duties
and will honestly and faithfully perform the duties
of the office of police officer of the city of Idaho Falls.
of the office of police officer of the city of Idaho Falls,
Idaho. According to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
The Bill of Rights was ratified in 1791. For more than 100 years, Americans had the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure, but that right existed little more than on paper. In other words, the average American probably couldn't tell you what it meant or even recognize an unreasonable search and seizure, even if it was right in front of them. One of the first cases to begin to define an unreasonable search and seizure was Weeks versus U.S. Weeks versus U.S., which was decided in 1914, first defined the exclusionary rule. You may have heard of this before. The exclusionary rule is defined by case law and states evidence and persons obtained unlawfully by the police will be excluded at trial, or in other words, can't be used by the prosecution as evidence to convict. The case started in Kansas City when a man named Weeks was arrested for using the mail to transport tickets for a lottery, which was against the law. Officers arrived at his house and searched it without a warrant. Now to us today, that's obviously a huge problem. But at the time, once again, the average American and probably even the police didn't know what an unreasonable search and seizure was. We often rely on case law to interpret and define our constitutional and statutory rights. There just wasn't any meaningful case law to that point yet to give the protection from unreasonable search and seizure any substance. The police themselves possibly didn't realize they were doing anything wrong, or they believed the lack of a warrant to be a minor technicality. During the warrantless search of Weeks' residence, the police seized articles and papers. They left, and later they even returned and searched the house a second time without a warrant, this time seizing more letters. Weeks was eventually convicted of unlawful use of the mail based upon this evidence collected without a warrant. The Supreme Court of the United States reversed his conviction and held evidence that was obtained unlawfully, in this case without a warrant, could not be used. This exclusionary rule, as it came to be known, only applied to federal law enforcement, however, and the exclusionary rule would not be applied to local, county, and state law enforcement for more than 40 years until the 1961 case of Mapp versus Ohio.
The date was September 29th. Mr. Stafford was in an apartment in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He was there to purchase 3 cases of whiskey from John Carroll and George Kiro. They negotiated and agreed on a price, $130 per case, and Carroll and Kiro left the apartment to pick up the whiskey. They returned a short time later and told Stafford that the supplier wasn't in and promised they would deliver the whiskey the next morning at 10 o'clock. The next day came and went. Carroll and Kiro never showed. Could it be that they suspected that Mr. Stafford was actually a federal law enforcement agent? Maybe so, because the year was 1921. The National Prohibition Act was in effect. The National Prohibition Act made it a crime to possess, sell, or transport liquor. Stafford's true name was Fred Cronenwett, and he was the chief prohibition officer in that federal district. Agent Cronenwett's investigation of John Carroll and George Kiro led to the Supreme Court's landmark 1925 decision in Carroll v. United States and the birth of the mobile conveyance exception to the Fourth Amendment search warrant requirement, also known to law enforcement officers as the Carroll Doctrine. While he was at the apartment that evening, Agent Cronenwett identified the car that John Carroll and George Kiro were driving as an Oldsmobile Roadster and took down the license plate number. On October 6, 1921, a few days after Mr. Carroll and Mr. Kiro were no-shows, Agent Cronenwett was out on patrol with another agent. They were patrolling the road between Grand Rapids and Detroit, Michigan. Prohibition agents patrolled that road because it was one regularly used by bootleggers to transport whiskey. Agent Cronenwett saw Carroll and Kiro drive by in the Roadster. Agent Cronenwett and the other agent he was with initiated a chase, but they lost the car. A couple of months later, on December 15th, luck was with Agent Cronenwett again. While on his regular tour of duty on the same road, he spotted the Roadster and saw Carroll and Kiro inside. The agents again initiated a chase, and this time were successful in pulling the car over. Mr. Carroll, confirming that he had suspected Agent Cronenwett's true identity, got out of the car, greeted Agent Cronenwett by his true name, Fred, and offered him $10 if Agent Cronenwett would let Carroll and Kiro go on the strength of the promise that they wouldn't engage in the unlawful activity again. Agent Cronenwett declined the money and the offer. The agents searched the car, and behind the upholstery of the rear seat of the Roadster, they found 68 bottles of whiskey and gin. Mr. Carroll and Mr. Kiro were indicted and convicted in federal district court for transporting liquor in violation of the National Prohibition Act. 1 bottle of whiskey and 1 bottle of gin were admitted into evidence by the government at their trial. Carroll and Kiro appealed, contending the search of the automobile and the seizure of the whiskey was a Fourth Amendment violation. The Supreme Court looked to an amendment to the National Prohibition Act in making its decision. The amendment provided that agents engaged in the enforcement of the Act who searched a private dwelling without a warrant could be charged with a misdemeanor. But agents who searched any other property without a warrant could be charged with a misdemeanor only if the search was malicious and without reasonable cause. The Supreme Court recognized in reviewing that amendment that it was Congress's intent to allow warrantless searches of other property, such as vehicles under the Act, so long as those searches were supported by reasonable cause. The court found the distinction between a warrantless search of a dwelling and a warrantless search of a vehicle to be consistent with the Fourth Amendment requirement that searches be reasonable. Because the court recognized vehicles are mobile and can be moved quickly out of the jurisdiction where a warrant could be obtained, and then evidence or contraband in that vehicle would be out of law enforcement's reach. However, the court held that law enforcement officers must have probable cause to believe the vehicle contains contraband or evidence of a crime. In the case of Agent Cronenwett and the other prohibition officers, the courts found that probable cause did exist. The officers were patrolling a highway that, based on their training experience, they knew was often used to transport liquor. The information they'd previously obtained about John Carroll and George Kiro gave them probable cause to believe that the Oldsmobile Roadster and its occupants were engaged in the illegal business of bootlegging. The Carroll decision created a judicially recognized exception to the Fourth Amendment warrant requirement. But it's important that law enforcement officers know and abide by the requirements of the mobile conveyance exception. First, officers must have probable cause to believe that evidence of a crime or contraband will be found in the mobile conveyance. When is a conveyance considered a mobile conveyance? A mobile conveyance is one that is presently operational, one that can be rendered operational with only a minor repair, such as changing a flat tire or replacing a dead battery. There's no requirement that the vehicle be currently in operation. What's the scope of a search under the mobile conveyance exception? It's the same as the scope of a search that an officer could conduct if the officer had obtained a warrant issued by a judge. The officer can search any place within the mobile conveyance that the evidence or contraband that the officer has probable cause to believe is in the vehicle might be found. In the case of a vehicle, this could include the passenger compartment, the trunk, the glove compartment, the console, the door panels. Also, it's important for officers to remember that the mobile conveyance exception is not limited simply to automobiles. Mobile conveyances can also be boats, airplanes, motorcycles, or recreational vehicles, for example. The mobile conveyance exception created by the court in Carroll v. United States gives law enforcement officers an important tool that they can use in executing their duties. But remember, the articulable facts that a law enforcement officer must offer to justify a search under the mobile conveyance exception must be the same as the facts that that officer would be able to present to a judge and obtain a search warrant. And officers should also remember to conduct the scope of their search in a way that's reasonable under the Fourth Amendment. That is, limit the scope of the search to those areas in the mobile conveyance that the contraband or evidence of the crime could be found. I'm Teresa Hoyt, and this has been FLETC Talks.
And this is Dia. She has a warrant.
What's that?
Who's this? I think she might have a warrant. Huh? Yeah. I got her identified? Do we have her identified? Is this Dia or Dominique?
Dia.
Dia?
Dominique is my sister.
Okay. Did we run her?
Have you ran her? Yeah. Okay. I think it was a non-extraditable warrant out of Delaware.
Okay.
I think that's what hit.
So, who's this female that's just going crazy?
I don't know. I've only seen her one other time with him. I don't know what her name is, but I know that's not Lauren.
What have you called her?
I don't. She doesn't even talk to me. He was with her one other time when he came by my sister's house.
What was he calling her?
I honestly don't know her name. I don't know her. I was at my sister's house and I came from the bathroom and walked through and they were talking.
Amy McCammon?
That might be it. I don't know. But it's not Lauren though. I know.
Where is driver?
He's over here. He's suspended. No warrants.
That's it.
Yeah. This is so stupid.
Okay.
Making this big a deal for a
Yeah.
suspended license?
Yeah.
Well,
Like
it's
I
because
told
there's
you.
dope in the
Review
car.
warning.
Who's suspended? Oh yeah, the driver.
She is.
What happened?
There's gonna be dope in that black backpack, I guarantee.
Oh. Well,
For her to make that much noise about it?
We called for. Is there a dog on?
Norman.
Well, he's suspended.
Right?
He's going to jail.
He's at 368.
Passenger.
Oh, 368's on the way.
Oh, he's on the way.
I just told her.
Do you have an Amy McCammon in there?
Same type.
The Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution is part of the Bill of Rights. It prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. That means that you and your property cannot be searched without a warrant, and the warrant must be supported by probable cause and issued by a judge. In the criminal law context, this often arises when someone is driving a car that's been stopped by the police. The police officer may suspect that the car contains contraband or that the driver is hiding something, and he may want to search that car immediately without taking the time to obtain a warrant. Question is, when can he do that? If a police officer lawfully stops a car, and after stopping the car there are facts which give the police officer a reasonable suspicion that the car contains evidence of a crime, he may search the car at that time for that evidence of that crime. However, just because a police officer has stopped your car for speeding or for failure to renew your motor vehicle registration that in itself does not give the police officer cause to search your car without a warrant. If a police officer stops you for a minor traffic offense, once the investigation of that minor offense is over and you have been cited for that offense, the police officer should let you leave. Sometimes the police officer will not let you leave because he suspects that your car may contain drugs or some other contraband. However, that suspicion, not unsupported by facts, is not enough to allow the police officer to detain you. If you've been stopped for a minor traffic offense, once the police officer has finished the investigation for that offense and cited you for that offense, he should let you leave. Sometimes a police officer will not let you leave because he suspects your vehicle contains contraband. That, however, is not enough to allow the police officer to detain you. If you have been unreasonably detained after the police officer finishes his investigation and cites you, any evidence that he gathers beyond the time that you have been reasonably stopped may be suppressed and not used against you in a criminal prosecution. Some may think this is just a loophole which protects criminals. It is not. It's a basic right of all American citizens to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. It protects you from being harassed by police officers when they have no probable cause that you are committing a crime. It provides a disincentive for police officers to abuse citizens. If you've been charged with a crime after being unreasonably stopped or detained by a police officer, you should contact a lawyer immediately. That's all for now. I'm Alan Browning with Browning Law.
We're going to be talking today about searches of cars. There are a lot of different legal theories under the Fourth Amendment, the part of the Constitution that prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. So there are a lot of different theories that police and prosecutors and defense attorneys talk about as they're asking, can the police search for evidence of a crime in a car? So let's go talk about car searches. Okay, folks, let's get started. We're going to be talking about searches of cars. There are some special Fourth Amendment search and seizure rules when it comes to cars. We're focusing on the search rules, not the seizure rules. So there are separate rules for when can you stop a car. You need some kind of reasonable suspicion to believe that the driver has violated some criminal law or traffic law. But we're not talking about the stops. We're talking about the searches. Once the car is stopped, can an officer look inside the car to try to find evidence of some kind of crime happening? In this setting, there are lots of different theories that the government can use. We're going to talk briefly about four of them, just a quick overview of four theories. But the big, idea here, your rule of thumb is government's probably going to win because they've got a lot of different ways of explaining, ways of justifying the police officer searching inside the car. Lots of different theories, therefore lots of different ways to win. Government's probably going to win. We'll walk through the four different theories. First of all, here's theory number one. This is called the Carroll theory, or the automobile exception to the warrant requirement. So this was established in a case called Carroll versus United States in 1925. Like a lot of 1920s cases, this dealt with prohibition of alcohol, and the federal agents and state agents were out looking for illegal transportation and sale of alcohol. And so they stopped a car and were looking inside the car for alcohol, but they had no warrant. And at that point, it was not clear whether you needed not only probable cause to believe that alcohol was in the car. This is not just a fishing expedition, but you have some reason to think this car will have alcohol in it. But not only, in some settings, the question is, you not only need probable cause, but you need to go to a judge ahead of time and convince the judge and get the judge to give you a warrant, and then you can search. And the court's answer in Carroll versus United States was, no, if it's a car, we're just going to give up on the whole warrant thing. We're not going to make you go get a judicial pre-approval of your probable cause. And the court had a few reasons for that, but one of them was, cars are just easy to move. And so, if you were going to a house and you thought there was evidence in the house isn't going anywhere. So you have time to go to the judge and get the warrant and then come back to the house and get your evidence. But for the car, cars can move. It's easy, maybe you see it there now, but you turn around 3 minutes later, it's gone, or maybe even 30 seconds later, it's gone. So the idea of cars being movable influenced the court here. And also the court had some passages indicating that cars are sort of in a more public place than being in your home. That is, we think of ourselves as being out in public when we're in our cars on the roads. And so you give up more of your privacy if you've chosen to go out in that part of the world. So at any rate, the court says no warrants required in a car. They've reaffirmed that idea several times over the years, including Chambers versus Maroney in 1970. But that's the basic idea. There is one little side area here on this warrant idea. If you have a container within a car, it was not clear all along the way whether you needed a warrant to get inside the container. So for instance, if I have a briefcase and it's latched shut and I carry the briefcase and put it in the car, now that it's in a car, do you need to have, can you look inside the briefcase without a warrant, or do you treat the briefcase as something that requires a warrant as if it were sitting in a house or an office or something? And the basic answer the court has given after some back and forth over the years is that no, you don't need a warrant just because there's a closed container in the car. So no warrant for the car and no warrant for the containers within a car. There are a few limits on this. So for instance, if I have probable cause that is limited to a container, I think somebody's carrying, illegal paper, illegal bonds, counterfeit bonds in a briefcase, and I watch them walk to their car, get in, and then I immediately, approach the person and want to search. Well, there hasn't been any opportunity to move the counterfeit bonds somewhere else in the car, so I can't at that point say, aha, warrant exception, Carol, I get to search the whole car because I know that you put something illegal in the car. No, if I know that my probable cause is limited to a particular place in the car, like in the briefcase, or I see somebody put the thing I'm suspicious about in the glove compartment, I can't then go and search the trunk. So the probable cause only extends to the areas where, I saw it go in. Probable cause might be limited to a sub area of the car. On the other hand, if somebody goes to the car, goes around a corner, I can't see them. They're in their car for a minute or something before I arrive and ask to search. Maybe in that amount of time, they could have moved the counterfeit bonds or some of them somewhere else in the car. And so at that point, I do have probable cause that extends to the whole car. So that's theory number one. The warrant exception, the automobile exception to the warrant requirement under Carroll.
And this is Dia. She has a warrant.
What's that?
Who's this? I think she might have a warrant. Huh? Yeah. I got her identified. Do we have her identified? Is this Dia or Dominique?
Dia.
Dia?
Dominique is my sister.
Okay. Did we run her?
Have you ran her? Yeah. Okay. I think it was a non-extraditable warrant out of Delaware. I think that's what hit.
So, who's this female that's just going crazy?
I don't know. I've only seen her one other time with him. I don't know what her name is, but I know that's not Lauren.
What have you called her?
I don't. She doesn't even talk to me. He was with her one other time when he came by my sister's house.
What was he calling her?
I honestly don't know her name. I don't know her. I was at my sister's house and I came from the bathroom and walked through and they were talking. Cameron? That might be it. I don't know. But it's not Lauren though.
Where is the driver?
He's over here. He's suspended. No warrants.
That's it.
Yeah. This is so stupid.
Okay.
Making this big a deal for a
Yeah.
suspended license?
Yeah.
Well,
Like
it's because there's dope in the car.
warning.
Who's suspended? The driver.
What happened?
There's gonna be dope in that black backpack, I guarantee.
Oh. Well,
For her to make that much noise about it?
We called for. Is there a dog on?
Norman.
Well, he's suspended. Right? He's going to jail.
He's a 368.
Passenger.
Oh, 368's on the way.
Oh, he's on the way.
I just told her.
Do you have an Amy McCammon in there?
Same type of stuff.
So we can't search the vehicle.
Well,
if
the thing is we got to figure out. So he refused to identify himself. His license is suspended. How many? I mean, you asked him several times to provide his license for registration insurance, right? So he can go to jail for resist and obstruct or failure to identify. I know if that particular suspended code is a misdemeanor based on the insurance. I'll have to look at that. I'm just waiting for a photograph on her to see what we have. She's got non-extraditable warrant, I think. Out of, I'm not sure what state it is.
Yeah, she told me Michigan maybe.